I'm Ashton Addison from the Crypto Coin Show, and today on Blockchain Interviews with Andrew Hyde, the head of communications at the Render Network Foundation. Andrew, welcome to the show, and thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having us. Very exciting. Good to connect as well.
Likewise, and I know that there's a lot of updates for Render. I feel like it's a great time starting 2024. This could be the year. Regardless, there's going to be a lot of updates in AI, GPU processing, metaverse, and blockchain overall. I think the Bitcoin ETF is overshadowing a lot of great innovations that are deeper in the space. And I'm excited to hear your insider insights into it. I would love to start off our conversation, but just sort of a high level on Render Network, what the platform is all about, and what you and your team have been working on for a while. And then we'll dive into the latest details.
Yeah, the Render Network it's kind of a sleeper project in my opinion. Started in 2017, back in that batch, and we're still building and growing. Recently, we moved over to Solana, which kind of put us on a lot of lists as far as attention and kind of building on chain. The foundation itself empowers the governance process for the Render Network. The Render Network is advancing the next generation of rendering and AI technology. That's our general high level mission statement. So we're a nonprofit. We're based out of the Caymans. And we're really trying to figure out how we get general distributed GPU compute to projects that need it, wherever they may be. We deal a lot with kind of spatial 3D rendering and then general compute clients. So we have kind of different customers based on where we're going and where there's interest and need for general GPU compute. GPUs are all in the news. Nobody can get enough, and everybody needs them for AI models, large language modeling. And we have, I think we're the only people that can say we have an excess of GPUs and are ready for projects. So we have a real product live on chain. We do millions of frames a year already of 3D rendering. And then we are kind of building and testing the market on what's coming up next. We have Apple Vision Pro. I saw this morning we might have a launch date for that coming up, which is very exciting. Because those, if you think about video, and kind of processing from your MacBook or your kind of souped up machine, you have spatial coming from, Vision Pro, and that's going to take a ton of compute power. I think the magnitude is 1,000 to 10,000x, depending on how you program it.
Wow.
And so how do we empower those, and how do we get creators and artists and find them and find the ones that are saying we want to push the envelope and we want to do bigger and bolder things. The Roddenberry archive is a great example of that, being the, Star Trek, all of that. So that's all been rendered and modeled into a project that is being used. So hopefully we'll see some fun applications from that. I know Jules, the founder of Otoy and the founder of the Render Network, is really pushing the envelope with that, working closely with them.
Wow, very cool. A lot of different updates to dive into. And it's a whole nother world from me diving into the intricacies of GPUs and the different use cases they can have. I remember back in the day, my main use case was so I could play better video games when I was growing up. I needed the best GPU, and that was before Bitcoin. But I know that a lot of blockchains as well, that are running with mining with GPUs, that was one of the reasons why there was a big demand for them, and that we were seeing a lot of the GPUs were sold out completely. But I know that gaming and the metaverse, the spatial web, I'm sure the rendering for that and for video editing as well is like in high demand, especially as the graphics get better. I'm hoping that the decentralized metaverses will increase their graphics, and along with that, you need the computing power for GPUs. So those are some of the use cases that I personally had experience with. I'm curious on sort of what are the top or most important practical examples and use cases on what Render is working with right now.
I think, we're in this interesting space in that we're end-to-end encrypted. So our artists using the platform have to tell us they're using the platform. And sometimes that's surprising. So we found out recently that the Sphere in Vegas, we have an artist that's actually producing for that. And so they are learning a new format right? Like, how do you play around with what you can do when you're hitting export to a screen size that you've never heard of, or didn't even know it could exist? So that's a little bit of that. We're catching up to kind of the market as far as, what are people dreaming up? And I was not dreaming up the Sphere in Vegas to be a place where GPU power was needed, but it is. And then I think gaming is really, we're kind of returning to the roots of that with GPU power, where people just want to see those experiences be as realistic as possible. And the developers are wanting to see that. I think Apple, the Vision Pro is a great example of what can be created when you have the proper processing and the proper ability to launch. And I think the idea of just general compute, right? Like, we launched compute clients, is this idea of what happens if you do have a decentralized massive array of compute at your fingertips. And so we've teamed up with a couple of distributed models. Beam is one of them, FedML, and then IO.net are our first three. I work with the governance process for the Render Foundation, so I'm deep in the very exciting governance, which most people don't find to be very interesting. Most people, just want to see it live and working and such. But what we're building is this idea of what can, how can we respond to the market, and how can we respond to the biggest and boldest versions of that. Like, how do people dream with it? So our grants process right now is almost exclusively for artists using the network. And so if you go to our website, renderfoundation.com, you can see a lot of what they created, which is this like photorealistic, like amazing worlds. And when we gave them grants and we gave them compute power to do bigger and bolder projects, we basically said, we don't expect anything in return. We just want you to do things that you thought was impossible or that you wanted to push the envelope with. And so that was our goal with that.
Very cool. And yeah, I've seen the videos of the Sphere, and the resolutions, you wouldn't be able to comprehend it unless you saw it in person. And I feel like that's just the beginning. That's one of the very cool things, but I feel like that will be the normal as the compute and rendering speeds and quality just exponentially improves, just like AI is over the coming years. It will seem normal in a year or two.
Yeah, and we have artists, that they kind of built up these souped up rigs, or miners that Ethereum switched over, and kind of their rigs are obsolete now. So they have all this like idle compute power. So they use their rig 2% of the time, and so we have a lot of our nodes or artists that are donating, their computer overnight and then being rewarded in compute time, which then they can be used on their own personal projects or their own professional projects to
very cool.
Cycle, so.
And I want to dive into that a little bit deeper in terms of the blockchain or the decentralized network of it. When I think of you needing a lot of compute or rendering power, you just think, okay, there's a lot of graphics cards that are needed, but may not all be in one space in one warehouse. Is that correct?
Correct.
So could you explain a little bit how that works and where's the distribution? How do people get involved in providing the rendering power?
Yeah, we have a long list. And I think that's one of the errors of the project, is that we have more GPU compute than we have use for it, for various reasons, right? So our to be added as a node, we've just turned off the wait list. I think the wait list was just over 2 years to get on as a node.
Wow.
So we just kind of turned that off and said, this isn't a great fit. As far as our demand of 3D, which is our focus, spatial web isn't here yet, right? Like, one museum opening up an amazing immersive experience could absolutely take over our network. But we're not seeing those huge jobs, and we're not seeing those big use cases come through quite yet. These are use cases that, Amazon, like, one of the first 3D, spatial jobs that I ever heard of going through Amazon kind of shut down a data set, right? Like, it's just a different use model. These file formats are not for kind of what is out there. So our nodes are all over the world. Our compute clients are, something I have a little bit more familiarity with, because they apply and we try to get them connected and onboarded. one of our compute clients is online. Two of them are about to be online. So, we're still trying to figure that out. But distributed, people are writing me when they generally have over 25 spare GPUs to put to work. And so every morning I kind of have this like laughable amount of GPU power kind of wanting to be used. And so I think we need to work on the demand side a little bit more than the actual GPU compute side. But we have, both are kind of growing. We're still in kind of, and we're advanced and we've been around since 2017 and an infant in that all of our on-chain stuff is now being built on Solana. So now all of our dashboards need to be ported, and we used to do, quarterly reporting, and now we're going to do up-to-the-minute reporting, based on just having the speed of that network, and being able to put that on chain. So, long way of saying, it's a global network. We have nodes in Iceland. We have nodes all over Europe. We have nodes in Africa. We have nodes in North America, of course. But those, can be, we have a scoring system for the jobs that they do. And so you're going to be able to see, as a node, you've got a quality score. You need to have uptime, and you need to have the job, signed off as something that was a quality job to maintain your score and maintain and get further jobs.
Very cool. Thank you for explaining that. And you touched there at the end about Solana. I saw the recent PRs with Render Network moving onto the Solana blockchain. I've seen other projects as well do the same. It seems like it's a good blockchain for cost, efficiency, speed. Can you talk a little bit about that transition, the reason of moving to Solana and the response so far?
Yeah, I think it was RMP001, our protocol, where we launched. Actually, 002 is our network expansion. The idea was basically we want to do a lot more on chain, and the gas costs are killing us. And so how do we do, how do we roll out with another layer one? We were on a layer two. It was working pretty well, but still the gas costs were just killing our creative abilities. So we put forth, we talked with the community came up with the idea of moving to Solana. We voted on it, and we took the year to kind of upgrade and do that. We recently launched that. It's gone super well. We have upgrade rewards for those users going from RNDR to render. So we have a new token. So that's a change. And community is super kind. Really love the founders, Toli, Raj, great team over there, that really want to see us succeed and really want to see our community, thrive. And so that's been a nice thing. I know that, you can't get into crypto fights about much more than layer one expansions. So we generally don't want to be in that fight. We just want to use something that we can put the most things on chain and build stuff for our community.
Definitely. And it's a good problem to have when you have so much graphic processing power that there's excess. But I feel like there's going to be some catalytic aha moment where something happens, hopefully this year or next year, as we see AI growing. It might have something to do with it, where a lot of processing power is needed. And I feel like that's going to be the time when Render Network will shine above all the others. Do you have any anticipation or insights into what that might be or what could happen?
We've got a lot of sparks, what's going to catch on. There's Bill Gates just posted that he visited the Lightfield labs. And I don't know if you've experienced Lightfield yet, but
No.
It's absolute insanity as far as being able to capture an actor or an actress and kind of improve upon that. The last Star Trek, the final scene is, Nimoy kind of looking back in time and seeing himself as a young actor. And that scene was the same actor on the same day playing two characters 60 years apart in age. And it's so emotionally beautiful, that scene and that moment. And that's just one product that could be using this. Now, doing Lightfield takes an insane amount of GPU power, right? So Bill Gates is getting this great tour and great interview, and like one museum or one, sphere in Vegas can kind of roll out something like that. One production studio. to the beauty of what Render has done is we've helped artists be better at their jobs by, empowering them to be faster in their renders. Usually they set it up overnight and wake up and hope everything worked. Now we can take those 20-hour renders and cut them down to about 15 minutes.
Wow.
So the problem with that is that you don't do that much, right? You set up those scenes and that might take 10 hours of your talent, but rendering it takes 15 minutes, not 8 hours. Mm-hmm. So we are looking for things that, it's kind of a beautiful problem to have. We're too quick to then sell a service that says that we are used all the time. So we need to kind of find that spark. Could be Vision Pro. It could be a singular museum wanting to run something super powerful. Mm-hmm. And it could be 3D rendering kind of coming to the masses. I'm reading and I'm so excited about kind of the chipsets that are in the MacBooks and in the iPhones. And you're able to render using these things. And there's billions of those devices around the world. So, the future is pretty bright. It's very interesting. I love the team at Render, super kind team, super smart team. And something that, I show up every day and I'm super impressed. And I think that that's what you want in a project.
That's great to hear. And one other example that comes to mind is with AI. And right now we've seen a huge rise in AI imagery. It's even being integrated directly into Instagram, but programs like Midjourney, ChatGPT's Dolly, Meta's building their own, right now you can sort of real time make any imagery, and they're starting with the video as well, but it's not really out to the mainstream. I feel like in short order, there will probably be, the Midjourney where you can type anything and it will just produce a whole movie in seconds with full video that would need to be rendered out. I feel like that would be a great place for Render Network to fit into.
Yeah, that would be super exciting for me to see. And the idea as well is that this democratizes access to the ability to produce those things, right? Like you don't have to be a venture capital backed startup to have access to the server farm that can produce things for your network. So it's not just those big players that you're talking about. It's also small players that want to compete with them. Mm-hmm. That's really exciting.
Yeah, definitely democratizing access. But speaking of big players, you mentioned earlier at the beginning about the Apple Vision Pro. I feel like this hardware is something that is necessary to be improved as well. And you know a lot more about it than I, but maybe you can talk about that Vision Pro and how Render fits into that and sort of where we see the industry going.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the Vision Pro succeeding, like early iPhones succeeded because the App Store really drove that. I mean, the core things, but the apps really were there. So what is going to be built on the Vision Pro that's going to be that sticky feature? Mm-hmm. Oculus, I think, is super interesting. I've used it a couple times, but it kind of suffers from that, like, this is neat problem. Mm-hmm. And, where is the Vision Pro actually going to succeed for long-term use every day? And, I don't think that programmers are really going to be, doing headsets with, their code. But I do think that a lot of games are going to happen. A lot of immersive experiences are going to happen. A lot of concerts, a lot of live, a lot of things that I find to be very interesting are the things that are very GPU, expensive. So what happens, when an app catches on? That is the reason why you use the Vision Pro, or the one that you boot up when you get that device and you tell your friend that's over that wants to see it. So how can that experience be amazing? Mm-hmm. And I think Apple has dialed things in. I mean, that's what they're famous for. But what do the startups that are building the apps that are going to be that experience that is the next level? How are they empowering, their creative journey? And I think that's where Render really can step in. Roddenberry Archive is something that I think everybody should be looking at when it comes to Vision Pro and what can be done. Jules has been very vocal about, them having 3D modeled every single, ship, enterprise, like all of those worlds. And so what happens if you build a game that's just, you're a mechanic on the ship and you're flying around the ship trying to figure out a loose wire, and you're just kind of in this meditative state flying around space, looking at the most beautiful imagery you've ever seen. Like, I don't know. I think that I would want to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Apple would want to see that as well. But that's empowered. You know, it's a little bit different than I think a lot of the games we imagine, right? Like, I think everybody's going to launch with, you know, Dune, or, you know, like these games that have been played out. And I think that the Vision Pro is just a complete different ability in what it can empower. So that's what we hope. I haven't gotten my hands on a product yet. I know there's several friends that have and have shot videos and have kind of nudged me saying, you wouldn't believe what's going to happen. So that makes me very excited. But I really am excited to kind of put my hands on it myself. And I'd love to develop apps for it as well. Like, I guess my creative process is really excited.
Yeah, no, it's very exciting. And I feel like having the spatial version of the App Store that has an environment, when they lower the barriers to entry to really make it easy to develop apps that are high quality and get people's creative juices flowing. And once that sort of infrastructure is built out, then I feel like Render Network would do really well in that you'd be able to compute it, but there just needs to be more content, more ideas in an environment that really fosters being able to create without a lot of barriers to entry.
I mean, I think of games, I think of concert experiences and live experiences. I would love to watch F1 via, you know, that experience. So yeah, we'll see what everybody does. You know, it's kind of we love decentralization and we love global communities. What happens to the App Store when all these big brands start playing along with, you know, things that are meant for the users all around the world to connect to their favorite experiences? I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, very exciting. And I feel like when that gets to the norm, and it might take a few years or decades, the App Store might be a thing of like the iTunes Store in the past. And it'll be like, that was what people used to use before we got into the spatial web.
Yeah.
And now, throughout 2024, what are some of the things that Render Network and the foundation are working on to grow? And obviously Solana is a huge advancement. What comes next after that?
Yeah, hopefully more compute clients, I think, is our short-term desire, right? We want more projects that are building ways for our project to be used. So we have general compute. How do we get more use? And we're really listening to the community on that. Anybody can go to our Discord or find me on, you know, every platform out there, and we can talk about it. How do we get startups involved? I think is a big part of how the Render Foundation works. We're doing, you know, we've got a new infrastructure. We've got a new coin. So we're trying to get everybody upgraded. So upgrade rewards, we're paying for gas fees until the end of the month. So if people want to do that, we'll pay their ETH fees. And then, you know, every month we're sending out, like last month we sent out just over almost 200,000 render as far as rewards. I hate using the term airdrop, but we do have upgrade rewards, which is nice. And I think what a lot of the users in the space really kind of perk up and listen for. Not something we generally like using, but it's there. We like when people upgrade. And then, I mean, Vision Pro, how exciting is that? I think that's one of the biggest things for me. And then it's a community project, right? Our RNP process is open. Anybody can participate, and anybody can help write an RPP and get on our Discord and work. And we're really a global team. So
very cool, Andrew. Well, thank you for the insights. I will leave the links to the platform, the Discord, your connections into the show notes below as well. Great to hear about those incentives, and congratulations on a successful launch on Solana. I'm looking forward to the next steps, and I will be following along. So let's definitely follow up in the near future.
Awesome. That'd be great. Have a good day.